A colossal space station hung in the void, like a metallic metropolis, its spires glowing faintly against the stars. Ships from across the galaxy lined its docking arms, each vessel carrying warriors from the deadliest planets known to exist. The entire station thrummed with tension and life, a place where species that should never meet in peace had gathered for a single, dangerous purpose. Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the human transport and surveyed the docking bay. His team of 4 moved in formation behind him. The air was heavy with mixed gases tailored to alien physiology. Jake had to work harder just to breathe, but his face remained unreadable. "Stay close," he murmured to his team. "We observe, we listen, and we don't start anything." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez gave a tight nod, cradling a datapad filled with biological data on every species present. Her role was simple: identify weaknesses. She had spent months preparing. Sergeant Danny Cole cracked his knuckles with a grin, the team's demolitions expert. Danny carried enough explosives to vaporize a small building, though he hoped not to use them here. Corporal Lisa Grant double-checked her communications rig. She was the lifeline between team members and back to Earth. Her gear could cut through nearly any interference, even the exotic energy fields alien planets liked to throw at them. Bringing up the rear was Private First Class Kevin Murphy. At 22, he moved with a silent predator's grace. A born scout, raised in the forests of Montana, Kevin could track anything with a pulse and vanish before it ever noticed. The 5 humans walked corridors lined with nightmares, made flesh. A Vorthic warrior floated past, its gaseous body suspended by an energy field. 8 feet tall and soundless, it moved with eerie fluidity. Its homeworld, a crushing gas giant. Forged creatures under pressure that could shatter diamond. Soft little things, it whispered in its airy tongue. Did someone bring pets to the gathering? Jake didn't react. He kept walking. Amy quietly logged the Vorthic's response on her pad. When they stepped into the main assembly hall, Jake had to steel himself. The chamber was vast, as the size of a stadium and packed with life forms from across the stars. Some clung to the ceiling, others hovered in atmospheric spheres, while many stood in organized clusters on the ground. Near the center, a group of Kroner warriors bickered, in voices like grinding metal. Each Kroner stood 10 feet tall, built of gleaming armor and volcanic power. Their species consumed molten, or like humans ate bread. One of them noticed the humans and let out a metallic chuckle. So the garden world sends children to play with real warriors, it sneered. Other heads turned. Cephrians murmured with crystalline tones like wind chimes. Made of living crystal, they came from a world soaked in deadly radiation. Thrakari hissed from the shadows. Venomous fangs, exposed predators from a jungle world where survival meant eating before being eaten. Jake felt hundreds of alien eyes lock on them, most with mockery, some with detached curiosity, not a single one with respect. A massive space station hovered in deep space, like a floating metal metropolis. Ships from across the galaxy arrived steadily, each carrying elite warriors from the most dangerous planets known to exist. Inside, the station buzzed with tension as species that rarely met without violence gathered for a single purpose. Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the Earth transport, scanning the alien docking bay. For humans followed close behind his elite team. The air here was dense, tainted with the mixed atmospheres of countless species. Jake breathed deeply, concealing the effort. "Stay close," he said lowly. "Remember the rules, observe, listen, don't engage." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez gave a nod, her datapad loaded with alien biology and tactical vulnerabilities. Sergeant Danny Cole grinned, already itching for a reason to use the explosives packed in his gear. Corporal Lisa Grant adjusted her communications rig, capable of cutting through nearly any interference. Private First Class Kevin Murphy, youngest and most alert, scanned their surroundings with predator-like focus. They passed monstrosities born from nightmare worlds, A towering vortic, a gas-based being suspended in an energy field, floated by them soundlessly. It sneered, "Soft little things. Someone brought pets to the meeting." Jake said nothing. Amy noted the comment silently. Then, a deep, mechanical voice boomed across the hall. "Respect. Captain Morrison of Earth." All eyes turned upward. Floating above them was the Arbiter, the Galactic Council's enforcer, massive neural organism encased in cybernetics, surrounded by spinning mechanical limbs. "Your species has been granted permission to join the challenge," the Arbiter announced, though many question whether beings from a mild garden world deserve to stand among true death world predators. Laughter erupted from the crowd, 1,000 voices from 1,000 species. It was a sound like nothing Jake had ever heard. "We are ready to prove ourselves," Jake replied, his voice calm but firm. Despite its quiet volume, it cut through the noise like a blade. Another voice interrupted, hissing and mocking. "Prove yourselves." A Vortic commander floated forward, larger than the others, marked with rank symbols that shimmered like starlight. "Little human, do you understand what stands before you? Every creature in this room has survived horrors that would shatter your mind. The Kroner bathe in lava. The Zephyrians thrive in pure radiation. The Thrakari hunt beasts born to kill gods. And you come from gentle meadows and rain." Jake didn't flinch. "Our world taught us everything we need to know." More laughter followed. Amy leaned in and whispered, "Let them believe we're weak. That's their mistake." The Arbiter lifted a mechanical arm, silencing the room. "The challenge is set. All 2,000 competitors will be transported to Earth's most lethal environment. You will have 7 Earth days to reach the extraction zone. The species with the most survivors wins dominion over the Kepler, VGA, and Centauri systems." A large hologram appeared in the Iran endless stretch of thick jungle, torrential rain, and flashing lightning. "The Amazon rainforest," the Arbiter declared, "enhanced with your planet's most deadly flora, fauna, and weather, modified to properly challenge apex predators." Jake studied the map. He had trained in that jungle before. Yes, it was dangerous, but to humans, it was home. Kevin stepped closer. "Sir, this feels like they just handed us the home field advantage." Jake smiled slightly. "Exactly, and they don't even realize it." The Arbiter continued, "No outside weapons allowed. No assistance from your own species. No killing unless in self-defense. Survival is the only goal. Prepare. In 6 hours, you will learn who among you deserves to be called the galaxy's ultimate predator." The crowd dispersed as various species retreated to plan. Jake motioned his team into a quiet alcove. "What do you think?" he asked Amy. "They're all built for extreme conditions, heat, pressure, radiation," she replied, glancing around. "But take them out of their element, and they become the ones who don't belong." "Exactly," Danny added with a smirk. Lisa checked her equipment again. "Storms will limit communication, but I'll keep us linked." Kevin watched Thrakari sharpening their claws. "They think this is about who can kill the most. But the Amazon isn't about killing, it's about surviving." Jake nodded. "Earth didn't make us strong by trying to kill us. It made us smart by forcing us to adapt." 6 hours, he said. "Rest up. When we hit that jungle, we'll show them what humans really are." Dawn. The transport ships released their cargo. 2,000 warriors dropped into the emerald chaos below. Some glided with wings, others used advanced tech. The humans, simple, quiet parachutes unfolding above the canopy like whispers. Jake landed hard on soaked ground. Instantly, the humidity wrapped around him like a wet blanket. Sweat trickled down his spine. All around, the jungle screamed. To his left, something roared in agony. To the right, another sound, sharp, high-pitched, and suddenly cut off. Jake tapped his radio. "Sound off. Amy here. landed safe. Danny, good to go. Lease equipment, functional. Kevin, all clear. Jake exhaled. His team was intact. Others weren't so lucky. Amy checked her datapad. We're on the western edge near what used to be a river. It's now a flash flood. Temperatures at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 90%. Storms expected within 2 hours. Kevin scrambled up a tree and was back in seconds. Movement to the northeast. Something big just took down a Zephyrian bubble. They're panicking. Jake's smile was grim. The jungle had already begun its lesson, and the galaxy was about to learn that Earth doesn't forgive weakness, it teaches survival. Movement everywhere. Captain, Kevin whispered from a low branch overhead. Smoke. In 3 directions. Something big, really big's crashing through the forest half a mile north. And bugs. Lots of bugs. As if summoned by his words, a dense black cloud of mosquitoes descended on the team. Without hesitation, the humans pulled out small aerosol canisters and sprayed themselves with insect repellent. The bitter smell clung to their clothes, but it kept the swarm at bay. Basic rules, Jake said, scanning the tree line. We know this place. They don't. Move carefully. Move quietly. Pay attention to everything. He pointed quickly to each member. Amy led on biology. Kevin scout and eyes forward. Danny watch for hazards. Lisa keep comes online. He looked around. Questions? None. They'd trained for this moment. They slipped into formation and advanced into the green chaos almost immediately. Jake could tell the other species were already struggling. The Kroner warriors, metallic giants from a volcanic world, were easy to track. They tore through the undergrowth like construction equipment. Their heavy bodies sank into the soft mud again and again. They weren't built for terrain that gave way underfoot. About an hour in, the humans found the first casualty. A Vorthic warrior lay crumpled beside a stream, its gaseous form flickering. Inside a leaking containment field, Amy knelt beside it and scanned quickly. Anaphylactic shock, she said. Look, fire ant bites. Dozens. Breathing systems also clogged with moisture and venom. In the distance, they could hear wheezing, cries more Vorthic, struggling for breath in the suffocating humidity. Creatures adapted to the thin atmosphere of gas giants were now drowning in Earth's thick air. Keep moving, Jake ordered. Next, they encountered a group of Zephyrians, crystalline beings, trying to cross a small clearing. The rain pelted their fragile forms, and Jake could see cracks spiderwebbing along their limbs. Without the radioactive environment of their homeworld, their energy reserves were rapidly failing. One Zephyrian turned and regarded the humans. Its voice was like a wind chime. Water-beings ... How do you survive in this liquid hell? Amy answered simply, we belong here. The Zephyrian's crystal eyes flickered, confused. Impossible. No intelligent life could evolve in such conditions. Jake gave a thin smile. Yet here we are. And the team pressed on, leaving the failing aliens behind. The forest was alive with sound, each call and rustle a warning, a broadcast of violence, hunger, or fear. A distant Kroner warrior let out a scream, cut short with a metallic crunch. Splashing from nearby rivers hinted at more casualties swept away by the Amazon's fast, muddy waters. Monkeys howled territorial warnings. Birds screeched in alarm as alien intruders crushed their nests, and beneath it all, the endless insect chorus never ceased. Movement, Kevin whispered again from up ahead. The team froze. Through thick leaves, they spotted a hunting party. Thrakari warriors, acid-fanged reptilians, silent and lethal. Their scaled bodies slipped effortlessly between trees as they stalked prey. The humans watched as the Thrakari pounced on a group of smaller, unfamiliar aliens. The attack was fast, ruthless. Acidic saliva hissed and burned through armor like paper. The victim screamed briefly, then went still. Natural selection, Danny muttered grimly. Jake gave a silent nod. We keep our distance. Let the forest do our work. By noon, the first storm hit. Rain came down in sheets, turning paths to rivers and rivers to torrents. Lightning ripped across the sky like divine fury. Thunder rolled through the trees, shaking the ground beneath their boots. The team took shelter under the broad root system of a toppled tree. They huddled in silence, conserving energy, watching. Not all were so wise. Through the curtain of rain, they saw Kroner warriors standing openly, letting the acidic rain pound against their metal bodies. They didn't understand this world yet. Steam hissed from their armor. By the time they realized the rainfall was corroding them, it was too late. Gashes opened in once impenetrable plating, joints seized. Their howls of agony were drowned out by the storm. Jake leaned his head back against the tree's damp bark and whispered to no one in particular, "Welcome to Earth." A group of Vorthic warriors had taken shelter inside a hollow tree without checking what might already live there. A second later, the tree exploded with fury. A swarm of angry rainforest bees poured out in a buzzing black cloud. The Vorthic had no chance. Their gas-formed bodies offered no protection against stings. They swatted wildly, but the bees were too fast, too numerous. Within minutes, the air reeked of venom and fear. The warriors fled, their containment fields flickering erratically. By the time the storm finally passed, the forest had grown even deadlier. The ground was slick with wet leaves and mud. New streams had carved through familiar paths, making old trails impassable. The air hung even heavier, drenched in moisture and the scent of decay. Amy checked her bioscanner. Casualty count? We started with 2,000. I'm now reading roughly 1,600 active life signals. 400 gone in the first day, Danny muttered. Jake wasn't surprised. The other species had come expecting monsters, beasts they could fight, enemies they could overpower. But Earth's most dangerous weapon wasn't a predator. It was the planet itself. They found higher ground and set up camp as the sun dipped below the canopy. In the distance, scattered voices echoed, some shouting for help, others lost and confused. Arguments about which way to go. None of them sounded confident. Day 1 complete, Lisa said into her com. Human team 5 members, all operational. Jake looked into the darkened forest. Somewhere out there, 1,600 alien warriors were learning what it really meant to survive on Earth. Most of them wouldn't live to see sunrise, but his team would, because this wasn't hostile territory. This was home. Day 3, by the third sunrise. A grim realization had taken hold among the survivors. They were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. Jake woke before dawn to a low, deliberate crunching of branches. Something large was moving through the forest. His team was already up, quiet, still, weapons at the ready. Jake raised a hand, signaling, "Wait." The sound was familiar. Heavy, controlled steps. Not crashing like the alien warriors. This was something with purpose. Jaguar, Amy whispered, eyes on her datapad. Big male. Territorial behavior. The mist parted. Through the gray curtain of early light, the cat emerged. It was massive, over 200 pounds of silent, rippling muscle. Its spotted coat made it nearly invisible in the dappled shadows. It paused, sniffed the air. "It knows we're here," Kevin murmured, "but it's not interested in us." It wasn't. The jaguar had already picked its target. Across the glade, a group of weakened Zephyrians shuffled forward, each step making their glassy bodies chime like broken wind bells. They were slow, dim, flickering like dying stars. The jaguar crept forward and struck. It hit the rear Zephyrian with surgical precision, driving its fangs into the creature's glowing energy core. The alien collapsed, its light vanishing in an instant. The other Zephyrians turned to slow, to dim. Their energy weapons sparked feebly. 2 more jaguars flanked from either side. A pack, working together. Amy's eyes widened. Cooperative hunting, she said. They're driving them toward unstable ground. Sure enough, the cats steered the Zephyrians toward a hidden bog. One by one, the heavy crystal aliens broke through the surface and vanished beneath the muck. The forest is fighting back, Danny said, half in awe. The humans gave the jaguars space and respect. Other species might have tried to fight or drive them off. The humans understood. This was the jaguars' world. They were just visitors. Less than an hour later, a different kind of scream echoed through the trees, high-pitched, panicked, unending. Kevin climbed a tree and came down pale. Army ants, he said. Millions. They found a group of Throckeri. Even the name carried weight. The Throckeri were acid-fanged predators, one of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. Their saliva could melt metal. Their claws could slice through armor. But, against Earth's army ants, none of it mattered. The insects moved like a tidal wave of death flowing over everything. Their tiny jaws dismantled the Throckeri like machines, taking apart a starship. The Throckeri screamed, not in rage, in terror. For the first time, they understood what it meant to be prey. They'll head this way soon, Amy warned, studying patterns in her pad. We need water, deep water. The team moved fast, toward the flooded river they'd seen on the first day. The current was faster, now dangerous, but it was their best shot to survive. Other aliens had the same idea, but not all made it in time. When they reached the riverbank, they found a surreal sight, a line of Kroner warriors waist-deep in the rushing water, using their metal bodies as anchors. Just behind them, a few floating Vorthik hovered barely above the surface, unable to go deeper. Humans, one Kroner called out, voice like crushed iron. The metal eaters are everywhere. We cannot go back to land. Jake scanned the forest floor. He could see the ants swarming behind tree trunks like living oil. But the Kroner hadn't realized a bigger danger. They were standing in a river, in the middle of storm season. You need to get out of the water, Jake called. The Kroner leader laughed. Soft human, we are made of metal. We do not float. Away. Amy pointed upstream. It's not about floating, look. Jake saw it immediately. Debris building in the water. The rumble of the current growing louder. The birds had gone silent. A natural dam had formed and was seconds from breaking. When it gave way, the flood would rise 20 feet in less than 5 minutes. You won't be carried away, Jake said grimly. You'll be crushed. The Kroner hesitated. Their minds were wired for brute force, not pattern recognition. Your choice, Jake said simply. Then he led his team uphill fast. The flood hit 15 seconds later. Minutes later, wall of brown water came roaring down the river, tearing through the jungle like a living monster. Trees, rocks, debris of everything in its path was swept away. The Kroner warriors vanished beneath the torrent instantly. Their dense metal bodies dragged them under, too heavy to fight the current. The Vorthik tried to rise above the chaos, but the raging waters filled their delicate breathing systems. They suffocated mid-air, collapsing like deflating balloons. From high ground, Jake and his team watched in silence as the flood surged past. In just 5 minutes, it was over. The ants were gone. The forest was quiet again. Lisa checked her scanner. 6 more signals lost, she reported. They didn't make it. They climbed down and pushed forward. The rainforest around them was subdued, but not peaceful. Distant voices cried out for help. Others argued blindly in the undergrowth. Most of the big groups had splintered, scattered by storms, insects, and fear. By midday, the humans encountered something unexpected. A lone Kroner warrior sat beside a stream, UNMOVING. Jake raised a hand, signaling caution. He approached slowly, expecting a trap, but the Kroner didn't flinch. It looked up with molten eyes, dimmed by fatigue. Human, it said, its voice a far cry from the usual metallic thunder. I have been watching your species. Jake stayed alert. And what have you seen? You do not fight this place, the Kroner said slowly. You dance with it. When the great cats hunt, you give them space. When the waters rise, you climb to high ground. When the insects march, you find safety. You do not try to conquer, you try to belong. Amy stepped forward, medkit in hand. The Kroner's armor was cracked in several places, leaking metallic fluid. Let me help you, she said. The Kroner stared, confused. Why would you aid an enemy? Because you're hurt, Amy said simply, as if that was answer enough. She treated the wounds while the warrior spoke. My name is Grexer. Was a war leader of my people. I've conquered 12 worlds, killed 1,000 foes in single combat. He glanced around. But this place defeated me without even trying to fight. Earth doesn't want to defeat you, Jake said. It wants to teach you. Teach me what? Grexer asked. How to live. He fell silent as Amy finished the bandages. Finally, he looked up. May I travel with you? He asked. I think I need to learn this lesson. Jake turned to his team. One by one, they nodded. Double quotes welcome aboard, Jake said, as they prepared to move on. Kevin dropped in from the trees. Captain movement. Ahead. More survivors heading this way. Looks like the word's spreading. The humans know how to stay alive. Jake sighed. Leading 5 humans was hard enough. Leading a group of alien stragglers who didn't understand Earth's rules, that was something else entirely. But he looked at Grexer, this hulking metal titan trying to step lightly through vines, and he understood. Something bigger was happening. The aliens weren't just surviving, they were learning to think like humans. And that might be the most dangerous lesson of all. Day 4, by the next morning, Jake Morrison found himself leading the strangest survival team the galaxy had ever seen. Word had spread. One by one, aliens sought out the humans, desperate for help. Their little unit now included Grexer, the Kroner warlord, Tvorthik, Wisp and Zephyr, who had modified their systems to breathe Earth's humid air. 3 cracked but functional Zephyrians, their crystal bodies, dim but intact, and half a dozen others Jake couldn't even pronounce. This is not what we signed up for, Danny muttered as he watched Amy explain something to a glimmering Afuran. The red berries, Amy was saying patiently, contain enough poison to kill 20 humans. For your energy core biology, they'd likely cause a core overload. Probably an explosion. The Afuran quickly pulled its hand back and chimed, "Thank you," in its musical voice. Jake couldn't deny it. Danny was right. They had come to prove humans could survive. Now they were running a jungle school for aliens who had spent their entire lives believing they were the apex of every food chain. Movement ahead, Kevin reported from the trees. Big storm system coming from the east. Looks worse than anything we've seen. Jake looked up. A black wall of thunderclouds stretched across the sky. Lightning flickered inside the storm like veins of fire. The pressure was dropping fast. Ears popped from it. We need shelter, he said. Real shelter, not just trees. There, Grexer pointed with a thick metallic finger. Cave entrance, 50 meters north. Jake blinked in surprise. Grexer had learned to observe, not just charge through. They moved fast. Rain began falling, not drops, but blows. Each one slammed into them like a slap from the sky. The wind bent trees sideways. They reached the cave just in time. It was narrow at first, the entrance almost hidden behind vines and moss. Jake sent Kevin ahead to scout it. He returned to minutes later. Goes back 30 meters, opens into a larger chamber, he reported. But Jake tensed. Hostile. Kevin shook his head. Bats, lots of them. From the smell, vampire bats. The aliens looked at each other uneasily. Wisp, One of the Vorthik pulsed faintly. What? Is a vampire bat? It asked. One of the Vorthik made a sound like steam escaping under pressure. Blood-drinking creatures. We cannot go in there. Jake didn't flinch. Actually, we can. He turned to Kevin. Explain. Kevin stepped forward, falling naturally into a calm, teacher's tone. Vampire bats aren't what you think. They don't attack humans unless provoked or cornered. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. But they drink blood, one of the Zephyrians said nervously, its crystal body glinting in the flickering light. From cattle and horses, mostly, Amy added. They only need about 2 tablespoons per feeding. They're not going to drain anyone dry. The sky cracked open before more arguments could form. Rain came down in sheets, so heavy it felt like the jungle was being poured out of the sky. Lightning struck close enough that the ozone stung Jake's nose. Thunder shook the ground beneath their feet. Jake turned to the group. Cave or storm? Your call. They chose the cave. The bats inside were restless but not aggressive. Kevin had been right. They huddled deep inside the chamber. They're soft, chittering, nervous, but not hostile. Jake's team settled near the entrance, where they could monitor both the storm and the bats. Grexer watched the ceiling, fascinated. How do you know so much about them? He asked. We live with them, Amy said simply. Every creature on Earth has its role. Bats eat insects that would otherwise ruin our crops. They pollinate plants we depend on for food and medicine. Fighting them is a waste. Understanding them helps us survive. But they are parasites, Wisp said, its gaseous form rippling with confusion. They take without giving back. No, Kevin replied firmly. They give back plenty. Their droppings fertilize the soil. They keep insect populations in check. Some spread fruit seeds. They're part of the balance. Jake listened, silent and proud. His team wasn't just surviving, they were teaching. And the aliens weren't just learning about bats. They were learning a different way to think. Grexer spoke quietly. On my world, strength means taking what you want and crushing anything that stands in your way. He looked around at the cave, the bats, the humans. Here, strength means knowing your place in something bigger. Jake nodded. That's exactly right. The storm raged for hours. Inside the cave, the survivors shared food and water. Amy treated injuries. Danny and Kevin demonstrated simple tools made from local materials. Lisa tried to maintain contact with orbiting ships through heavy interference. The Galactic Council is still broadcasting, she reported. Viewer numbers are higher than ever. Apparently, the galaxy is obsessed with watching its fiercest warriors get humbled by a garden world. How many are left? Jake asked. Lisa checked her scanner. 47 active life signs, down from 2,000 just 3 days ago. Jake looked around the cave. There were 15 survivors with them, now including his 5 humans, the largest surviving group in the challenge. Outside, the storm began to break. The lightning eased. The thunder rolled into the distance. Then Jake heard it. Voices, scattered, broken, unfamiliar. Other survivors, Kevin said, listening. They sound lost and scared. Amy added. Should we help them? Grexer asked. Jake turned, surprised. 4 days ago, Grexer wouldn't have hesitated to eliminate competition. Now, he was asking if they should help. Jake met his glowing eyes. Are you asking as a warrior, or as someone who's learned what it really means to survive? Grexer paused. I'm asking as someone who's learned survival is easier when you're not alone. Jake smiled. Then yes, we help them. When they left the cave, the world had changed. The storm had reshaped the forest. New streams carved out fresh paths. Old ones were washed away. Fallen trees blocked familiar trails. But Jake's team adapted fast. They moved like they belonged. 3 hours later, they found the survivors, 6 aliens from different species. drenched, disoriented, and clinging to desperation. Jake simply said, "Follow us." By nightfall, their group had grown to 21. They made camp on high ground, shared what little food remained, and posted guards in shifts. Jake watched as aliens, who had been enemies just days ago, worked together, building shelters, gathering water, dividing rations. Cooperation where there had once been only rivalry. Grexer sat beside him, his metal frame resting against a fallen log. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "What's that?" Jake asked. Grexer looked out at the campfire-lit gathering of species. "You've turned killers into a community." Jake looked out at the strange little coalition. Creatures who'd never even cooperated with their own kind were now surviving together, sharing with enemies. Because they had learned to trust the humans, they reached the extraction point. "One more day," Jake said. "And then what?" Grexer asked. Jake didn't answer immediately. He stared through the trees at the clearing ahead at the landing pad where rescue ships would soon arrive. But between them and that salvation stood one final test. A bull elephant. It was enormous, feet tall, tusks chipped and scarred from years of battle. Eyes dark with the wisdom of a lifetime spent as the uncontested ruler of this part of the forest. It stood beside the only water source for miles. "We could go around," one of the Zephyrians offered nervously. Its crystal body shimmered with tension. "Around means 20 meters through swamp," Kevin said from his scouting perch. "We won't make it before the extraction deadline." Jake studied the elephant. This wasn't coincidence. It was protecting what it needed to survive. "We fight it," growled Seth, a Thrakari warrior. "My acid can dissolve its hide." "No," Jake said, firm. "We do not fight it." "Then how do we get past?" Grexer asked, still holding on to old instincts. Jake turned to face them all. "We asked permission." The aliens blinked at him. Even Amy raised an eyebrow. "Captain," she said cautiously, "elephants don't speak." "Not in words," Jake replied, "but they have a language. We just need to listen." Jake walked forward, slowly and deliberately. No sudden moves, no threats. He made sure the elephant could see him, feel him. The great animal flared its ears a warning. Jake stopped. For several minutes, he stood still, letting the elephant study him. Then he spoke not in human language, but in tone, in posture, in respect. "We see you, old one," he said softly. "We know this is your land, your water. We don't come to take. We come to pass through with your permission." He slowly reached into his pack, pulled out a piece of fruit, one of the last stand, placed it gently on the ground, then stepped back. The jungle held its breath. The elephant lifted its trunk, sniffed the air, and then, slowly, moved forward. It picked up the fruit, ate it, and returned to the water. Jake exhaled. "Bring the others. Move slow. Show respect." The group 12 survivors approached like pilgrims to a temple. They bowed their heads, filled their canisters, and drank. Grex knelt beside the pool. "I understand now," he said quietly. "True strength isn't about taking what you want. It's about earning what you need." The elephant didn't charge, didn't resist. It simply watched as they passed, and then returned to its drink. They reached the landing pad with 2 hours to spare. Lisa activated the beacon. Human team. Leader, Jake Morrison. 12 survivors ready for extraction. The reply came quickly, the Arbiter's voice echoing over the comms. "Confirmed, Captain. Extraction ships are en route." As they waited, Jake looked over the survivors. 5 humans. Grestar, the Kroner, who had learned to think before acting. Tuvorthik, who had adapted to Earth's thick, wet air. 3 Zephyrians, whose bodies had nearly shattered yet endured. And 3 more, from species whose names Jake still couldn't pronounce, but whose eyes now held something new. Understanding. "What happens now?" Wisp the Vorthik asked. "When we return, what do we tell them?" Jake answered quietly. We tell them the truth. That Earth didn't make us strong by trying to kill us. It made us strong by teaching us how to live. The ships arrived, with the roar of engines and bright white landing lights. The crews aboard looked surprised. They had expected savage warriors half dead, bloodied survivors. What they found instead was something entirely different, a calm, quiet group who respected the world that had tested them. During the flight to the orbital station, a transmission from the Galactic Council was broadcast across the fleet. The humans have achieved something unprecedented, the Arbiter announced. They survived with all 5 team members intact and saved more non-human warriors than any other species saved of their own. Screens across the galaxy showed the footage. Aliens watched in silent shock. Some were confused, some were angry, but many looked thoughtful. At the Great Assembly Hall, thousands gathered. Representatives of every major species were present. They expected to celebrate conquest, to cheer the strongest, deadliest champions. Instead, they watched Jake Morrison step forward with his small, strange coalition of survivors and speak words that would echo through history. Earth didn't teach us to be predators, Jake said, his voice clear and steady. Earth taught us to be partners. A hush fell across the hall. We survived not by conquering our world, but by learning to dance with it. And that dance taught us something no weapon ever could. A voice called from the crowd. What did it teach you? Jake looked at Grexer. The Kroner warrior nodded. Then Jake spoke the truth. It taught us that true strength isn't what you can destroy, it's what you can protect, not what you can take, but what you can give. Not standing alone, but knowing when to stand together. The hall was silent. 2,000 warriors had entered. Earth's most dangerous zone. Only 12 came out. But those 12 brought back something far more valuable than star systems. They brought back a new definition of strength. Jake stood before the galaxy and knew the real challenge wasn't survival. It was change. The galaxy had spent millennia believing that might made right. But if even a Kroner could learn to ask permission instead of take by force, maybe there was hope for everyone. The dance was just beginning.